other jurisdictions have faced, and it can be difficult unless you have something like a conditional use permit where you can actually go back and, under threat of revocation, remedy the issues in front of us. So we've got to do this, but we got to tread carefully, and something does need to be done.
Well said. Councilmember Clausen.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add is that we are required to do this as it's indicated by the 30th, but that also doesn't lock the door on additional review and study, and we can have the Planning Commission look at some of those issues like Scott just mentioned about the number of folks in a room and so on, and then we can make adjustments at a later date.
Okay. Other comments or questions? Okay. Hearing none, you'll be voting on the adoption of an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code, Title 20, Legislative Shelter and Housing Requirements. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? The ordinance passes. We're to 7B, adoption of an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code, Title 20, Congregate Living Use. Mr. Bond, this is you.
Yes, this is another ordinance dealing with housing, although this one has had, I would say, more enthusiastic support. It came about because a particular user wanted to convert an old church into a congregate living facility, but we realized that the code didn't actually define congregate living facility, and it wasn't. The church was actually located in a zone where congregate living facilities wouldn't have been permitted anyway. So we had one of two choices for working with this applicant who is seeking to convert an old building. We could have pursued a rezone, but that would have required an amendment to the comprehensive plan, followed by action next year, and it would have been about an 18-month process. But considering we have a number of buildings like this in Port Orchard, and also a need for housing for all segments of the population, we thought that we may want to look at a legislative change to the code to simply define the use and then modify the zoning table to clarify where the use would be permitted. And so the congregate living facility ordinance includes a new definition of congregate living facility. The use has been expanded to be allowed in the R2 zone, in addition to the zones in which it was already permitted. And one of the conditions for approving a congregate living facility, which it would be a conditional use in the zones as proposed, but it has to be located within a quarter-mile radius of transit service. And so that was one of the items we discussed. It was this distance from transit as a condition of approval last meeting. And so revisions were made to the ordinance to reflect that modified language to reference the demand responsive transit service. So in the areas where that is provided in the city, that does constitute transit service. And so in all zones except for the gateway mixed use zone, this is a conditional use. Where it is actually allowed at all. And then in the gateway mixed use zone, it is proposed to be a permitted use, meaning it wouldn't have to go through that conditional use permit process where notices go out to the neighbors and there is a public hearing before the hearing examiner. So as proposed, and for the specific proposal that we had been discussing when we began working on this legislative change, that will require a conditional use permit hearing and will would result in notifications going out to all of the neighbors so that they can comment on the proposal and make sure that the proposal will not have impacts on the surrounding uses. So the staff recommendation for the congregate living ordinance is to approve it as presented.
Councilmember Chang.
I move to adopt an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code 2012 and 2039-040 to define the congregate living use and allow it as conditional use in the R2 zone.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Chang, a second by Councilmember Diener. Councilmember Rosepepe, do you have a question or comment?
No, I had a comment. Thank you, Mayor. I would like to just thank council and staff because I think this is another tool in our toolbox as we look at affordable living in our community. We've done ADUs. This is a great tool and has potential more than just one location. So I would like to thank staff and council moving forward.
Councilmember Kucharity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a great opportunity to increase affordable living in our community, and even further than that. I know we have a number of people that end up sharing, in a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment, right? There may be 2 or 3 people in there that oftentimes have to co-sign on a lease. And in the event of default, oftentimes those leases are joint and several, where an individual could be on the hook for the entire, rental of that larger space. And oftentimes with congregate living, it's limited to the room that they're renting. And so I think there's also, just risk benefit to our constituents as well. So I'm absolutely supportive of this. It's a fantastic addition.
Councilmember Diener.
I just wanted to write on that too. I believe that staff did a good job with the staff report in tying this proposal to the comprehensive plan policies and goals. Also at the Planning Commission, I recall that there wasn't anybody that testified against this. And in addition to affordable housing and removing some of the barriers associated with that, this also has potentially an impact on homelessness. So as we know, there are people out there that are one paycheck away from living in the streets. They can't afford some of the rentals that are out there, and this gives them an opportunity to avoid being homeless. So I too support this as well.
Any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, you'll be voting on the adoption of an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code Title 20 Congregate Living Use. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, the ordinance is passed. We're at item C now. Adoption of an ordinance reclassifying the property located southwest of the intersection of Sedgwick and Glenwood Road Southwest and Glenwood Road Southwest from commercial mixed use to industrial flex. This is you, Mr. Bond.
Yes, thank you. The city received an application for a site-specific rezone for the unaddressed property located at the southwest corner of the intersection of Sedgwick and Glenwood Road Southwest, identified as tax assessor parcel number 102-301-4-023-2001, to change the designation from commercial mixed use to industrial flex. The Port Orchard hearing examiner held a public hearing consistent with the requirements of POMC 20.22060 on September 9th, 2021, and issued a recommendation to approve the rezone for consideration by the City Council on September 22nd, 2021. The proposed rezone will grant the property development rights associated with the industrial flex designation, but future development of the property is subject to additional permitting requirements. And just as a refresher for the City Council, this is a zoning amendment that does not require a comprehensive plan amendment change. The industrial flex zone is a commercial zoning designation, so it allows sort of pseudo-industrial commercial type uses. The property, there's a map in your packet that shows where this is. It is tucked a ways off Glenwood Road, kind of back behind some critical areas. There's a usable piece of property that's fairly isolated. We had both neighbors to that property that are outside of the city, but adjacent to the property, come and testify in favor of the rezone. They thought it would be a compatible proposal, that they do have a few concerns that they want to make sure get worked out as part of the permitting process. I think most notably light and noise, but they felt like those things could be addressed later as part of development. And so the hearing examiner holds the hearing, issues the recommendation, and then the council ultimately has to approve the ordinance granting the rezone. And so that's why this is before you tonight. And we typically don't have an additional hearing or anything like that. It's the hearing examiner assembles the record, and then the City Council just approves the rezone as an ordinance when the time comes. The recommendation is to approve the rezone as presented.
Go ahead, Councilmember Diener.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance granting approval of the site-specific rezone from commercial mixed use to industrial flex for the property located at the northwest corner of the intersection of Harold Drive Southeast, identified as assessor parcel number 102-301-4-023-2001.
Second.
And I have to, I just realized that my staff, when they wrote this report, wrote the motion referring to the previous rezone that we did. And so you just mentioned Harold Drive Southwest and the incorrect parcel number. And so I apologize for that. We need to correct the location and parcel number in the motion.
Do we have a correct parcel number that we can read into the record?
think it's
Yes.
in the staff report.
The correct parcel number is 102-301-4-023-2001. And
Okay.
it's located at the intersection of roughly Sedgwick and Glenwood Road.
Okay. You
Okay.
motion and maker and the second comfortable with that amendment?
Yes.
I
Okay.
am.
Yes.
All right. Questions or comments related to this rezone? Councilmember Chang?
Nick, I believe there may be a scrivener's error. Page 45, for example, refers to the comment coming from a Stephanie Davis, but in the body of the comments, it sounds like the testimony was actually from Stephanie Andrews.
That is possibly a scrivener's error. Ultimately, this is the hearing examiner's decision, and so we didn't write that. But I can note it for the hearing examiner, and he can choose to correct it.
Either that, or I was going to ask, what did Stephanie Davis have to say about the comments, and it wasn't in the packet. So, okay, thank you.
Councilmember Ashby?
You're muted.
So maybe you can hear me if I unmute myself. When I look at the graphics that were provided, my question is, I'm fine with their proposal of the rezone, but do they have access to Glenwood or Sydney? It looks to me like they do not front a road.
Correct. They do have a private access easement across a property. I believe it's owned by Blackjack Valley Associates, or there's a property owner there who's had pre-application meetings with us in the past. And so there is an easement going across the property immediately north of the subject property, providing them access to Glenwood, Sedgwick.
Okay, so they're going to come through Glenwood and not Sydney.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Lucarelli?
Yes, I was wondering if we have any idea what the use is going to be of this building. This is a 10,000 square foot building or whatever it is. I know that the neighbors were talking about wildlife there being impacted. And I'm just curious. They claimed that they were going to be employing people, but I'm just wondering how many. Is this going to be a large facility with lots of employees, or do we know?
Well, we know what the applicant has told us, but when you are rezoning property and amending the zoning map, anything that's permitted in the industrial flex zone can occur here. But those are generally very low impact type industrial uses. In this case, the applicant for the rezone has indicated they own a water testing and I think a company that installs water systems. And so they have some equipment that they need to park there. They're going to have a large building where they stock supplies and have some offices. And so it's construction related, a construction related business, and they will have a driveway around all the way around their building with some minimal outdoor storage and mostly indoor storage and office type use.
But in the future, if they move out, something could move in, another company could move in that had a lot more impact to that area, correct? With what we're doing tonight.
Correct. So when you look at chapter 20.39 of the zoning code for the industrial flex zone, any of the uses that are permitted in industrial flex could occur at this site. But again, I would characterize those as being largely compatible with surrounding areas. The industrial flex zone was really created to sort of provide a transition between both industrial and commercial and industrial and residential areas. And so there's a lot of cities that have these sorts of areas where you start to see industrial uses on the edge of commercial areas where you have lower impact industrial uses, and even things like a microbrewery or something like that can go in there. And generally it's not terribly disruptive to the neighbors, but it is technically like a manufacturing type use. So there's a lot of different things that can occur in the industrial flex zone, but they're typically compatible. And when we look at the site plan and go through review of the proposed building, we're going to be considering those impacts.
Thank you.
Nick, did you say it was about a 10,000 square foot building was going to go on the site?
That is correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's not a very big building. Other questions or Mr. Dorsey? I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, Nick, that just as a recollection of the hearing, the property owners immediately adjacent to in the south that brought up the environmental concerns were in support of this rezone because the rezone was not going to disturb some easement or something, some access point that they felt was going to be disruptive. So correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but they were supportive of the rezone and the development.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Dorsey, for that clarification. Other questions or comments? Okay, you'll be voting on the reclassification of property located in the Glenwood area from commercial mixed use to industrial flex. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, the ordinance to reclassify the property has passed. So we're to item D, adoption of an ordinance repealing Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 26.20, regulating single-use plastic bags due to Washington State's preemption. Ms. Archer, this is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Council. Tonight's ordinance is a housekeeping ordinance pertaining to Ingro Substitute Senate Bill 5323, which was adopted in 2019. The council will recall that you had adopted an ordinance also in 2019 regulating the use of single-use plastic carryout bags, and the state swooped in and has now preempted your regulation. The state's regulations are found at Chapter 70A.530 RCW. Because of the state preemption, the city needs to modify its, needs to repeal its regulations, as we know we have no longer have jurisdiction over this issue. I apologize. So by this ordinance, the council would be repealing the statute, repealing the original ordinance and the chapter set out in the Port Orchard Municipal Code, which is 6.20.
Councilmember Clausen.
Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance repealing Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 6.20, prohibiting single-use plastic bags due to state preemption.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Clausen, a second by Councilmember Lucarelli. Is there any comments or questions? Councilmember Rose Pepe.
I just wanted to say that thank you to some of our businesses who have already been moving forward with this and going to either having you bring your own bags in or obviously paper grocery bags. So I think our city businesses are already doing their part, and I really appreciate that and thank them.
I've been to a couple of retailers here recently that are reminding people that starting on Friday, they have to start charging for those bags that they've been just giving to us during COVID. So, Councilmember Diener.
I wanted to remind, just for memory's sake, that when we were first talking about this, the Department of Ecology told us that in terms of weight, plastic bags are by far the biggest item that they pick up as refuse along our roadsides. And that's pretty significant when you consider how light those bags are. And then also being a coastal community, these bags end up in our water and they break down and they become microplastics. So again, these were all good reasons to look at this, but I understand the action in front of us. I'm just very supportive of the bag ban.
Other comments or questions? Okay, you'll be voting on the repealing of Port Orchard Municipal Code 6.2, regulating single-use plastic bags due to Washington State preemption. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the ordinance has been repealed. We're to item D now, E. Adoption of a resolution fixing the date of a public hearing on a petition to vacate a city of right-of-way, the southern portion of unopened Harrison Avenue. Clerk Reinerson.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Council. Petitioners Noel Larson and Dina Larson, who are owners of 821 DeKalb Street, Kitsap County Tax Parcel Number 4053 007 010 001, submitted a petition to vacate city right-of-way. The right-of-way is an unopened portion of Harrison Avenue, is directly adjacent to the petitioner's parcel to the east, and is approximately 7,854 square feet in total area. The petitioners are joined in their petition by Kimberly Phillips, the owner of 905 DeKalb Street, Kitsap County Tax Parcel Number 4053 008 015 0004. The parcel directly east of the portion of the unopened Harrison Avenue proposed for vacation. I received a completed application conforming with the requirements of the Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 12.08, which is including Section 12.08.010. This item went before the Land Use Committee at its August 4th, 2021 meeting. The Public Works Director supports the vacation as the city has no current or future plans to open this portion of Harrison Avenue. The Land Use Committee recommends approval of this vacation. Chapter 35.79 RCW requires that the city adopt a resolution setting the date and time of a public hearing to hear and determine the petition to vacate the city's right-of-way. Staff is seeking direction from the council as to when they want to hold that public hearing to vacate the proposed city right-of-way. The proposed resolution would set that public hearing via Zoom and by telephone for October 26, 2021, which is at least 20 days from the date of this resolution if adopted at tonight's meeting. Upon adoption of this resolution, staff will post proper noticing of the date and time of the hearing and provide notice to adjacent property owners. With that, staff recommends that the council adopt a resolution setting the date and time of the public hearing for the petition to vacate a portion of the city's right-of-way, Harrison Avenue, as described above. I will also provide a map here in just a moment. The hearing is proposed to be held on Tuesday, October 26, 2021, at a regular council meeting to start at 6:30 p.m. and directing the proper posting of the notices of the public hearing. I will, if you give me just a moment, I will share my screen and show the location of the petition.
Mr. Mayor, while that's happening, I can make a motion.
Okay,
I
certainly.
move to adopt a resolution setting a public hearing for October 26, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. on a petition from Noel Larson and Dina Larson to vacate a portion of unopened right-of-way, Harrison Avenue.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Diener, second by Councilmember Lucarelli. And I think Brandy's got her map up now.
So it's this, but then there is a companion item that's just after this item. But right now we're just talking about the vacation of this right away between these two parcels here. Hopefully you can see my mouse and the map on the screen.
Below, it's the yellow piece below the alleyway designation, which is the blue.
Correct.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, we'll be voting on setting a hearing, public hearing for the vacation of public right-of-way on the southern portion of the unopened Harrison Avenue. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the hearing has been set for October 26th. The second companion item is the adoption of a resolution fixing a date for a public hearing on a petition of petition to vacate city right-of-way on the northern portion of unopened Harrison Avenue. Clerk Reinerson.
Yes, the petitioners in this particular street vacation is Dana Harmon and John Phillips. They are owners of 824 Kitsap Street. Kitsap County Tax Parcel Number 4053 007 005 008, submitted a petition to vacate city right-of-way. The right-of-way is an unopened portion of Harrison Avenue, is directly adjacent to the petitioner's parcel to the east, and is approximately 7,920 square feet of the total area. The petitioners are joined in their petition by Geraldine Harmon, the owner of 906 Kitsap Street, Kitsap County tax parcel number 4053-008-001-0000, the parcel directly east of the portion of the unopened Harrison Avenue proposed for vacation. Again, I received a complete application conforming with the requirements of the Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 12.08, which has included Section 12.08.010. This item went before the Land Use Committee and at their August 4th meeting in 2021. The Public Works Director supports this vacation as well, as the city has no current or future plans to open the portion of Harrison Avenue. The Land Use Committee recommends approval of this vacation as well. Chapter 35.79 RCW requires the city to adopt a resolution setting the date and time of the public hearing to hear and determine the petition to vacate the city's right-of-way. Staff is seeking direction from the council as to when they want to hold that public hearing to vacate the proposed right-of-way. The proposed resolution would set that hearing via Zoom and by telephone for October 26, 2021, which is at least 20 days from the date of the resolution if adopted by tonight. Upon adoption of this resolution, staff will post proper notices and of the date and time of the hearing and provide notice to the adjacent property owners. With that, staff recommends that the council adopt a resolution setting the date and time of the public hearing on the petition to vacate a portion of the city's right-of-way, Harrison Avenue, as described above. The hearing is to be held on Tuesday, October 26, 2021 at the regular council meeting, which will start at 6:30 p.m. and will direct for the proper posting and notices of the hearing.
Councilmember Rosepepe, I caught myself with my mute.
Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution setting a public hearing for October 26, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. on a petition from Dana Harmon and John Phillips to vacate a portion of unopened right-of-way Harrison Avenue.
Second.
Second, motion by Councilmember Rosepepe, a second by Councilmember Diener. Any questions? And then in the map we saw, this is the other piece of right of way on the other side of the alley. And this is setting that hearing for October 26th as described by the clerk. So all in favor of setting this public hearing, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? And then the hearing has been set for October 26th. We are up to item G, approval of amendment number 2 to contract number 07520 with Rice Fergus Miller Inc. for the 2020-2021 City Hall Improvement Projects additional design scope. Mr. Dorsey, this is yours.
Thank you, Your Honor, council members. On October 13th, 2020, the Port Orchard City Council approved contract number B075-20 with Rice Fergus Miller for the 2020-2021 schematic design 30% City Hall Improvement Project. On March 9th, 2021, the Port Orchard City Council authorized the mayor to execute Amendment 1, authorizing to move the project to the 100% ad ready and bid support phase. At the city's request, Rice Fergus Miller then prepared and submitted additional design scope and budget associated with Amendment number 2, which is the PV array, that was the solar panels for $17,500, the police station renovation for $4,590, the court ADA counters at $7,500, and then the reception ADA counters, which are down here on the second floor, for $9,500. Staff recommends authorizing the mayor to execute amendment number 2 to contract number C075-20 with Rice Fergus Miller for the 2020-2021 City Hall Improvement Project, additional design scope in an amount of $39,090.
Mr. Mayor,
Lawson. Oh, oops, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Cindy.
I move to authorize the mayor to execute amendment number 2 to contract number C075-20 with Rice Fergus Miller Inc. for the 2020-2021 City Hall Improvement Project, additional design scope in an amount of $39,090.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Lucarelli and a second by Councilmember Clausen. Just from an additional background, and then I'll offer Councilmember Clausen's question. We, when we initially we were going to do the interior and exterior of City Hall. And then COVID came upon us and we shut it, we were fearful that our economy was going to be shut down. And so we kept it to just the shell of the building. Now we're closing in on finishing the designs for the exterior, and we're realizing we have some elements that, since we have an architectural firm under contract, it's going to be much more efficient to have them deal with these few elements that I think are rather important. The solar array, because we asked them to design a bigger solar array, we need to make sure that the footings for that don't pierce any of the water lines and other utilities in the ground, and there's a structural element to it. The remodel on the police department, we believe body cameras are in our future, and we need to move an interior wall so that we can get more personnel in that space downstairs. And then the last two elements are, we have customer service counters that aren't ADA or American Disabilities Act compliant. So we want to at least design those kind of customer service counters for the court and the finance department, add them to when we go out to bid. If we don't get good bids for them, then we'll remove those from the construction project and then put them out to bid later when potentially we get in a more favorable bid environment. But we thought it was important to at least get these designs done, have them in hand, put them out to bid, and see what kind of bids we get. So, Councilmember Clausen.
The only thing I wanted to add to your comments, and I think you did a fine job, is that we did talk about this at the last Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee was concerned with moving forward. So that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clausen. Other comments or questions? And I am getting internet unstable warnings, so hopefully I can finish our meeting without disappearing. So, other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, you'll be voting on amendment number 2 to contract 07520 with Rice Fergus Miller Inc. for the City Hall Improvement Project. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the amendment has been approved. We are to item H, approval of personnel policy update for COVID vaccinations as a condition of employment. Ms. Lund, this one's yours.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the city has adopted a variety of policies and practices to ensure the health and safety of our employees and to ensure our ability to continue to offer vital services to our citizens. These decisions have been made in response to orders from the governor's office and in consideration of guidance from CDC, the Washington State Department of Health, and Kitsap Public Health District. As an additional measure to ensure that we can continue to provide services to our citizens and customers and to protect the health and safety of our employees, our citizens and visitors to the city of Port Orchard, it's in the city's best interest to have as many employees vaccinated against the COVID-19 virus as possible. One tool that the city has available to do so is the ability to determine the minimum qualifications for employment with the city. In your packet for your consideration is a modification of a city policy making the COVID-19 vaccination a requirement for new employees. This proposed policy would be effective with employment offers beginning October 1. Staff recommends the City Council adopt a revision to Personnel Policy 2.4, eligibility for employment, to include a requirement that new employees provide proof of having received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccination prior to employment, and as a condition of continued employment, receive the second dose within 30 days, unless they have applied for and received an exemption due to a medical or religious reason.
Just a little more background on this before we deliberate this. This is really, we believe that the federal mandate that we don't have guidance on, the city will likely fall under that. And this is an attempt to get out in front of that. And as we're screening applicants, we would like them to be vaccinated so that 30, 45 days after they start at the city, a mandate isn't being imposed on them after the fact. So it's just really an attempt to be proactive in what we believe is coming in the next month or two, or likely before the end of the year. We're just uncertain when that guidance is going to come. So with that, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll kick off a motion just to get this started.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve revised personnel policy 2.4 eligibility for employment as presented to require new employees effective October 1st, 2021 who have received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccination prior to employment, and as a condition of employment, receive the second dose within 30 days unless they have an approved medical or religious exemption.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Diener, a second by Councilmember Clausen. Is there Councilmember Ashby?
I just have a question for Ms. Lund. And do we require current applicants or new hires to have any vaccinations at all?
No, it's not a job requirement. We offer the hepatitis B shot if people would like it for those who are occupationally exposed to bloodborne pathogens.
Questions or comments? Councilmember Rosepepe.
Mayor and possibly for our city attorney, what do we see as the time frame for additional, how soon we'd get the other guidance? And two, what is the legal risk we're facing on this?
The timeline question I can answer in an open meeting. The understanding is that, and using guidance, I think is a bit of a misnomer. It will be a directive from the federal government passed through WISHA. So it will be a requirement for all employers in the state of Washington with a certain capacity of employees. I understand that estimates are that threshold could go down to 25 employees. Our understanding is that directive will require employers to have vaccine mandates or to utilize weekly testing. And that mandate is coming anywhere between the end of this month and the end of the year.
Thank you.
And to answer your second question, I can't speak to legal risk in an open meeting.
I remember that, and I withdraw that question.
Oh, not a problem.
Councilmember Ciccardi.
Yeah, this is a very difficult issue, right? And it has been for, my goodness, it's almost coming up on 2 years here in March. And one thing that I think has been frustratingly consistent is the fact that they come out, our state or our federal governments, and they mention or hint at a directive that's coming, and then they just don't give any detail. And I think that's really frustrating. And we've seen it time and time again. And I think some of the hints that they've alluded to in the past have changed by the time that directive ends up coming out. And I do believe that this directive is forthcoming. I agree it will happen before the end of the year. And because of that, and with all the unknowns, I am in the position to go ahead and wait for that. I just think that there's additional risk and perhaps having to undo things if we act now. I don't think that this waiting 30, 60 days will have a major impact, but yet on the flip side, it could have an impact. And so I will not be voting to approve this tonight for those reasons, and hope to see the exact directives come at us hopefully in the very near future, so we know exactly what we're dealing with.
Councilmember Clausen.
Yeah, it's just a question for Ms. Lund. I'm not sure. The directive that's coming from the federal government is a vaccine mandate or testing. Do we have any idea of the testing component? Is there going to be a cost associated with that, or is that going to be left to the employees to bear the cost? Do you know?
I do not know. I've seen both sides of that, and perhaps Ms. Archer knows a little bit more about where that's falling right now. I've seen both employee expense and employer expense. I've seen it all over the place.
Yeah, my understanding is the primary source will be, the burden will be on the employer. That seems to be consistent with the federal government mandate as well.
So if we were to follow the federal government, assuming we know what the federal government guidelines are, it's either mandatory vaccines or weekly testing. We would more than likely then be responsible for the expense of that weekly testing.
Correct.
If we chose to allow that, but I believe we have discretion there, do we not, Ms. Archer, or could?
We'd be entirely speculating to say whether we'd have that discretion at this point. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, at the very least, we know that if it comes down from the feds as it's being proposed, we would have to implement either or. And for me, in doing this now for new hires, it is basically letting folks know who are applying for a position, this is a requirement. So if you don't want to take the requirement, then don't apply. I guess it's as simple as that. But assuming that they do, and they do comply with this order, or this resolution, they would come to the city, they would be vaccinated, and if and when this mandate comes down, that's one less that we potentially would be facing paying for testing.
Thank you for your comment. Councilmember Chang?
Yeah, I just wanted to commend you for trying to be proactive in this regard, because I understand that we would not necessarily want to be a refuge for applicants who may be fleeing from King County. However, I think it is premature. I would prefer to wait for the directive. And I'd just like to comment that our council has already voted to give an incentive to existing employees to encourage them to get the vaccine. So I think I prefer the carrot a little more than the stick, and I will not be supporting this resolution tonight.
Thank you for your comment. Councilmember Diener?
Thank you. I wanted to mention that Port Orchard isn't trailblazing on this, that King County is doing this. There are junior taxation districts that are doing this, fire districts, the city of Issaquah, Thurston, and Snohomish Transit are doing this. So I look at this as sort of interim due diligence. Yes, we hope to get guidance soon, but we don't know that it's going to be in 30, 60, or even 90 days. So I look at this as sort of an interim measure that will help protect our workers and the people that they come into contact with, some of them on a daily basis.
Thank you for your comment. Other comments or questions before we vote? Okay, I think this is going to be a split vote, so I'm going to be a little deliberate about this. So all in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 I see 3. And 1, 2, 3, correct? And those not in favor, please raise your hand and say nay.
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 And
Nay.
Councilmember.
I'm trying to put my hand up, but I can't find the camera.
Okay. All right. I found your hand now. So this fails 3-4. All right. We have one item that has been added to this evening's agenda. And that is item I, a DNR letter of credit. And Mr. Crocker, you haven't been allowed to speak all evening. So here's your opportunity.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Thank you for waiting patiently for this new addition. Business item I come forward as part of the purchase and sale agreement with Kitsap Bank. The city has agreed to assume an existing lease of state-owned aquatic lands between Kitsap Bank and the Washington State Department of Natural Resources. Due to the existing improvements on the leased area, DNR requires a security in the amount of the yearly rent. As such, DNR presented the city with a list of financial instruments which DNR would allow as security. Staff recommends the city utilize a letter of credit from Kitsap Bank in the amount of $18,000 to meet DNR's requirements and provide the security for the lease. This letter of credit represents debt and thus requires city council approval through the adoption of a borrowing ordinance. Staff would recommend the council approve the borrowing ordinance and authorize the mayor to enter into a letter of credit with Kitsap Bank in order to satisfy DNR requirements.
Is there a motion? Councilmember Kucharty.
Okay, I'm not on mute here. Second, toggle back and forth. Mayor, I move to approve an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a letter of credit in the amount of $18,000 related to the Community Event Center project.
Second it.
A motion by Councilmember Kucharty, a second by Councilmember Clausen. And this is just one of the, hopefully the last curveball that DNR throws at us because once we get the DNR lease perfected, we're ready to close on the property. So we're close, I hope. So this motion and a second on the floor. Any questions or comments related to this letter of credit? Councilmember Clausen.
Yeah, I think this whole issue for the community's sake is ridiculous. Essentially, DNR is wanting assurances that the city of Port Orchard is going to make its lease payment for 12 months. It just seems rather goofy to me that one government is requiring another government to provide a letter of credit for something that amounts to $18,000. I think it's goofy, but we're playing by their rules.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we've been pushing back on this issue for a couple of weeks now, and they're not budging. So, and we could probably elevate this and prevail, but at the end of when the bank builds their building and we go to build our new community center, we're going to be in negotiations on the building will be gone, and we're going to attempt to get this property for free because it'll be for public benefit. And I just don't want to sour those negotiations before they ever happen. So I completely agree with you, Ms. Councilmember Clausen. But I just think it's just time to move ahead, get these silly documents signed, and and move on with building the community center.
I totally agree. For $18,000, it's not worth losing a lot of sleep over, but it just seems rather goofy. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Other questions or comments? Okay, you'll be voting on the letter of credit document with Kitsap Bank related to the community center project. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? The item has passed. We don't have any discussion items and council committee reports. Let's start with economic development tourism. I don't know that you've met since our last council meeting. No?
No, previously you gave the report for September. Next meeting is in October.
Utilities, I believe that's also the case. Your next meeting's October 12th. Land use, I don't see a meeting date. Have you met since our last council meeting?
We just met last week.
Okay.
So we didn't give a report. I'm trying to figure out how to take 2 hours of meetings and put it in less than 2 minutes. We had some very good discussion. Our first item was talking about fireworks within the city. We were joined by Chief Fawcett. We had a lot of discussion about fireworks in general, the city, whether citywide, downtown areas. And basically, we decided we needed to have some more discussion about it, that it wasn't just quite as black and white as we thought it might be. We then had a brief by Nick regarding the draft parks recreation open space plan. And I believe that's going to the planning committee on the 5th, and then we'll see more of it at November work study if I have that right. Please join in, Nick, if I got it wrong. And a good discussion about parks grant and development opportunities coming up that will open up in February of 2022. They were looking at what funding sources to go after, and specifically looking at McCormick Village Park Phase 3, Marina Park expansion, and Fireweed Stormwater Park. There was a follow-on discussion regarding a new state law. It was a very general discussion regarding potential annexations in the Port Orchard UGA. I would like to just kind of leave that right there until we get more information. We had an update on DCD permits and project activities that we've gotten continually from DCD to the council. And then we had just a short discussion on shoreline development relating to a question that Councilmember Diener had. And that was it in a nutshell, but it was a very good meeting, and we'll move on from there. And we don't have a meeting scheduled yet, our next meeting, but we'll get that one scheduled on the agenda.
Okay, thank you for your report. Chimes and Lights, do you have a report?
I already gave it last time. The
Okay,
next
sure.
meeting is next month.
October 18th, I see it there. Finance, you met last week. Councilmember Clausen?
Let me take myself off of mute here. Yes, we did. We did our normal review of the sales tax receipts and the REIT receipts. I would report that they're both continuing to come in above expectations and very solid. So from that standpoint, things are looking fine. We went through the various fund balances, which as a result of the sales tax and so on, they all look fine. We did also talk about the amendments to the Rice Fergus that we acted on earlier and dealt with that. We also had a presentation by some of our IT folks regarding some changes that we need to make to the audio and video system in the council chambers. They basically described the process of updating so that one, we'll have ceiling mics over the area where the council sits for work studies so that it would be easier for folks to hear the discussion that we have during those functions. It'll be a change to the speakers that are in City Hall so that we won't get the feedback when we try to project a little louder, and being able to break them up into different zones. They can set them such that the audience would be able to hear us better by turning those speakers up and not the speakers that would create the feedback. Also improvements to the video system so that it would work better for incorporating into the hybrid type of both partial Zoom and partial in person, and the ability that once folks come to the podium to speak, that if any of us happen to be joining the meeting remotely, we'll be able to see and hear as well as they will be able to see and hear us. So essentially the estimate for the repairs comes in at about just over $65,000, which the committee felt was worth the investment in to make the City Hall work better for the community. And I think that was pretty much, we did talk briefly about the mid-year budget schedule and the process or the timing of how we'll be bringing the mid-year budget adjustments to the council work study and how the committee will be dealing with it. So that's pretty much it. Did I miss anything?
I think you got it.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Transportation Committee, you met this evening. Councilmember Ashby?
We did, and we started with updates. And the first update we had was we had a discussion regarding the federal funding competition, transportation competition that will be happening next year, and some perhaps revisions that the transportation technical group at KRCC will be looking at. And we discussed some of those potential opportunities for us to perhaps update some of those project selection criteria a little bit. So there will be more on that after TransTech meets in October and Transpol meets next November. Our other updates included the Sydney sewer and road repair, which I believe is basically done now. Also our Bethel Lincoln Roundabout, I believe I'm trying to remember what Chris said because I didn't write it down, is I believe we're working on the stormwater portion design on that, and then we will be ready to move forward. He talked about our street lighting study that was on our consent agenda, and he is in the process of updating our ADA transition plan. And so there'll be more to that to follow. Our next agenda item was the City of Port Orchard has been nominated for a complete street grant. And what that means is we have been nominated for this grant, and we discussed 4 potential complete street projects that we could perhaps use this grant money for. And we didn't come to a conclusive idea, but we discussed the 4 different possibilities. And I think our committee kind of focused on a non-motorized section of Old Clifton because it would meet the size of the grant that we potentially will get and meet their criteria quite nicely. Then we talked about something that the council has talked about on a few occasions, most recently at our retreat last winter. I can't remember if that was February, March when we got together, but we have asked our transportation engineer, our traffic engineer, Chris Hammer, to give a presentation at our work study in November to review with the council what our pavement management system is, how we determine which projects need to move forward, how we move them forward. And we believe it will be a robust and very informational time for and good use of the council's time. And we've also asked Chris to make sure he puts it in a language that is understandable to all of the council members as well as the viewing public. And with that, we adjourned our meeting, and we will be meeting again the 4th Tuesday of October. And we meet at 5 o'clock directly in front of the council meeting.
Thank you, Councilmember Ashby. Sewer Advisory Committee, I don't believe you met. Your next meeting is October 20th, I see. No?
We met.
You met? All right, then tell us about it.
We met. It was a wonderful meeting. Yes, very robust. West Zone Utility District proposed its 2022 budget. So we went over that. It's not unlike their 2021 budget. There were a few little issues concerning the COLA rate and such. That information is going to still be provided down the road. The budget included a capital project of about $1 million for the Sharples solids thickening equipment, which will improve the efficiency of the sewer plant. So that will be taking place next year. And also an update on the Marina Pump Station. We're at about 80% design. In the next few weeks, we'll be seeing that. So our next meeting, if we need it, will be October 20th.
So I certainly hope you guys toured the solids thickening process, because I'm certain that it's fascinating equipment.
Squeezes everything out. Yes, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Been there, done that, have the t-shirt.
All right. So that's sewer lodging tax. Is there anything to report there, Jay?
We have a meeting coming up in October. Brandy's getting everybody on board, so more to follow.
Okay, and I've got some outside agencies that I'll report on in my mayor's report. But Councilmember Ashby, I know you filled in at PSRC for me last week. Is there anything noteworthy?
Yes, I did. I attended the executive committee on representing the city of Port Orchard. And the big discussion item was the distribution of, and John, you helped me, was it ARPA funds? I can't remember the acronym, but it's federal dollars that came in for the transit agencies in the 4-county area. And it was a very robust discussion, because the various committees at PSRC had been unable to negotiate an acceptable distribution of those monies. So PSRC asked the executive directors of the transit agencies to take that challenge on, and they did. And they came back with a proposal, which was eventually passed by the executive committee. And it carved out a 2.5% adjustment for, there were some specific agencies. I think it was Pierce Transit, Washington State Ferry System, and one other one. Everett. Okay. And there were certain reasons why they're going to get 2.5% larger share. And at the meeting, Pierce County proposed an amendment to increase that to 5%. And it, as I said, it was a very robust and lengthy conversation, with the amendment finally not being approved, and the distribution as created by the transit executive directors is what was approved. So that was where we spent most of our time, Rob. I must say, I listened to the rest of the conversations. They were interesting, but not so much that they stuck in my mind, and I can report on them.
Fair enough. Any other outside agencies activity you'd like to report on?
What I would say is KRCC is not meeting again until November. We're working on our work plan for next year. It will be an important year again for KRCC, because we do have the federal transportation funding. And again, they will be determining the criteria for project selection early in the year, January or February, and then we will actually be reviewing the application and making the federal awards late spring, early summer. The other piece of very important work that KRCC is doing next year is population and employment allocations, and that has significant influence on all of our jurisdictions. So again, that will be something that our land use committee will be working. The technical folks really do that work. And as far as the Peninsula RPTO is going, we are working pretty much that status quo right now. We're working on our legislative forum, should I say, and our outreach piece that we publish for our legislators. That's kind of on our radar right now, as well as doing some behind the scene cleanup of some policy issues. So those are the ones I'm involved with, and yeah.
Thank you for your
That's where we are. Yep.
Cindy, did you raise your hand?
Yes, actually, I attended the KEDA retreat, KISSUP Economic Development Alliance, and we talked about the extraordinary growth that Kitsap County is going to be experiencing in the next 2 years. It's just overwhelming on lots of levels. But I thought it'd be kind of fun to let you know that Kitsap County has 273,000 people, average age 38.3 years, average home value $505,000 right now, and average rent $1,448. Isn't that astounding?
Wow, thank you for those tidbits. Any other outside agencies before I jump into the mayor's report? Just got a few things. I attended a mayor's exchange with AWC here a couple weeks ago, and every time I go, I always get some tidbit from it. But the biggest takeaway I continually get when I attend these events is, I know we've got challenges, but man, do we have it good. When I hear from other mayors and the things that they're dealing with, it makes I just shake my head. So we do have it good. And the group, the team we have and how we all work together is truly amazing. As I said, Beck covered for me at the Puget Sound Regional Council Executive Committee, because Noah and I were at the Workers' Comp Retro Board. And I don't know if you realize it, that Noah is the vice chair of the advisory committee. And my role is the secretary on the AWC board. I serve on the board also for the Retro Board. And I learned that not only is Noah the vice chair, but the chair is retiring. So I don't know what that means for Noah, but a future board meeting, he could get a different title. An important, takeaway for me, since this was my first meeting on this board, is the refund checks that we get when we perform well sure are nice. But the program is really about its mission statement, which is every employee home safe every night. And the Retro Pool is an extremely valuable resource to the city of Port Orchard. They provide us resources and claims management system at a far greater level than we could ever perform with our small staff. So greatly appreciate Noah taking a leadership role with that organization and the work he's doing there. And that is it for my, I did have one other special board meeting today at Public Health, and they were talking about the potential of a local vaccine mandate. We got information from the fire services, Department of Emergency Management, and the hospitals. It is encouraging to see the numbers finally coming down a little bit. Myself and other electeds did speak to that a local mandate could potentially be harmful to our small businesses, and put them in a position to be, in essence, our COVID police as people try to come into their establishments. I really wish we keep hearing these, and we alluded to it earlier, these requirements that are going to be coming from the federal government. I wish we could just get that guidance and move on. And deal with whatever that may be. But we're just kind of hovering in limbo as COVID continues to be a serious problem as it taxes the capacity of our hospital system. So that is my mayor's report for this evening. And we are where are we at on this agenda? Report of department heads. Ms. Lund, you're here tonight. Do you have anything to report from HR?
If I can get my computer to work, sorry about that. I am here, but I have no report for tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Crocker, you almost didn't have anything on the agenda, but then you got one item added. Do you have anything to share?
The only thing I wanted to mention, and Councilmember Clausen already covered this a little bit, but our next council meeting, we're planning on bringing forward the contract for those IT services. So I just want to give you a heads up that will be coming. And again, an approximate value about $65,000 for that contract. So that'll be coming at our next council meeting.
And the importance of that is so that we can, when we return, offer that hybrid meeting that all of you have been speaking to, so we can get our various ages of technology to work seamlessly together. So Ms. Archer, do you have anything to report?
Nothing to report this evening. Thank you.
And Mr. Dorsey?
I have nothing to report. Well, I'm going to be in Wenatchee for the next 3 days doing public works board stuff. So that's it.
Okay. We'll miss you tomorrow. Clerk Reinerson.
Yes, just want to let you know that we did open up today the lodging tax applications for tourism marketing and marketing of operations of events for 2022. Those close October 18th. And after those close, the committee will get together, and the goal is to bring forth a recommendation to the council at the first meeting in November.
Thank you. And Chief Brown.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I want to again just give a shout out to our professional administrative staff. We've got a lot of stuff going on and they're really stepping up. So I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the council allowing us to take that next step for kind of redesigning downstairs so we can use it a little bit more efficiently and hopefully get some additional bodies downstairs. So thank you.
Okay. And Mr. Bond.
No report tonight. Thank you.
Okay. That's all of our departments. We are to our second citizen comment period. Anyone wishing to address the council has 3 minutes at this time. If you raise your hand, the clerk will acknowledge you and bring you into the meeting.
Yes, Mayor, I have a handful of people that want to speak, and I will bring the first person over, which is Rob, and I will allow him to speak at this time.
Okay, Rob, go ahead. You've got 3 minutes.
Okay, 2065 Bay Street. I didn't say that last time, sorry. These executive sessions, something needs to be done about this. Nothing is more disrespectful to the community than when they have to sit for 20 to 25 minutes in the dark waiting for you guys. It's non-transparent. There's nothing to be gleaned by the community. And it's extremely disrespectful to sit there through that. They do not need to be done during the middle of the council meeting. What it says to the community is your time is valuable to us. The community respects your time. You give them 3 minutes at the beginning and 3 minutes at the end, and they respect your time. You need to respect the time of the community. It is disenfranchising to people to even want to attend the council meeting when they sit in the dark for that time period. It is horrible. You can change that. You need to change that, and you need to respect your constituents. Secondly, 2 months ago, I asked for empirical mathematical data about the cost and increase in connection fees from the city. You tried to give me a placated non-answer. That didn't work. I asked again to provide me that mathematical data that shows the need to make a doubling in connection fees. That was a very public records request. 2 months, you haven't responded. That is unacceptable. Now I'm demanding you provide me some data to show that to the community. It's wrong to deny that. I asked for it respectfully, and you have declined to provide it. That's not acceptable. I'm asking once again, please provide me empirical data that shows the need to double connection fees in the community for water services. It's a simple request. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And this is the city council meetings public comment period. This is not the method for which you make a public records request. As a frequent customer of the clerk's office for public records requests, I'm certain that you're aware, Mr. McGee, that those requests are made through the city's website, or they are made through at the clerk's office, and we will be more than happy to provide that information. So Ms. Reinerson, is there anyone else that wishes to address the council this evening?
Yes, Mayor, and I will be bringing over Sean to allow him to talk at this time.
Hey, Sean.
Hello again. Thanks again for hearing me. I live down in the marina, so the construction of the community center is going to be interesting. But my comment is on the employment thing that thankfully failed. You guys will say you're going to be waiting on the actual guidance. That guidance is unlikely to come. OSHA, the federal government is and will face lawsuits over their mandates. The CDC was found by the Supreme Court twice to not have the legal authority to do its eviction moratorium. It is very likely that OSHA will be found not to have the legal authority to mandate vaccines. So that guidance is unlikely to come. There have been multiple flu vaccine mandates for nurses that have failed in court under strict scrutiny. There have been COVID vaccine mandates that have failed in court under strict scrutiny for nurses. So OSHA doesn't have the authority to mandate a flu vaccine. Why would they have the authority to mandate a COVID vaccine? So this is known. This is if you care to do the research and aren't reliant on your staff to do such things, then you would know this. It didn't take me more than 30 seconds to find this information online. I was a nuke in the Navy for 20 years. I like arguing and I bring references. That's my entire training pipeline. We do not get in an argument without the references to back it up every time. So I'm glad the mandate, the employment mandate failed, which by the way is illegal. But it failed because you're waiting on guidance from the federal government that may never be forthcoming because it can't. They don't have the legal authority. Jacobson, which is the most likely, Massachusetts v. Jacobson, which is the most cited court case that gives the states the right to mandate vaccines, was overturned by the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And in fact, the use of Jacobson by the New York and California church bans was overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court on First Amendment grounds. First Amendment requires strict scrutiny under the court case, which is the highest scrutiny, which means you have to have a very, very narrow guidance, narrowly tailored requirement. And this council can't do it, nor can it afford the lawsuits that you will be personally liable for under 42 U.S.C. 1983, the civil action for deprivation of rights. If you
On your time is
pass it.
up. Thank you for providing your comments this evening. Is there anyone else wishing to address the council this evening?
Yes, I have one more person, and I'm going to allow Heidi to speak at this time.
Okay, you have 3 minutes to address the council. You need to unmute yourself. Heidi, you're muted. You need to unmute yourself.
Unmute. Okay, now
Okay.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, thank you, Heidi Fenton. And I'm glad, Mr. Mayor, that you thought it was harmful for the small businesses to go under this mandate. We are such a small community and we are all connected and we are thriving here. And we want to keep thriving with the small businesses and with the community connection. And so I'm glad that you brought that up tonight, that this mandate would be harmful for our community. That's number one. And another thing for the chimes of light, I got disconnected. So when Cindy said, oh, I've already reported that, I didn't get that information. So I would appreciate when someone says, do you have something to report? Report it, because some people don't get that information. And so I would like that information. And that's pretty much what I like to say. And thank you very much. Oh, and one other thing really quick. I do believe that from the beginning of a meeting, we should talk about the mandate and also anything else that a constituent would like to talk about. And also at the end of a meeting, just in case we get cut off in a meeting. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Kirk Reinerson, is there anyone else who wishes to address the council?
Yes, I have another person that has, well, never mind. I think they undid their, oh, I can't tell, but I believe that a gentleman by the name of Randy is trying to raise his hand. So I'm going to allow him to talk, just to confirm. The hand keeps going up and down. So I allowed him to talk to address whether he wants to talk or not.
Okay, Randy, you have 3 minutes if you wish to address the council.
Yes, I'm here. I'm assuming you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay. My question is with the up and coming proposed government campus that most of the public don't seem to know about. Is the city of Port Arthur going to stand up for property owners that do not wish to sell. I know some people may take a windfall on this one, but the others that do not wish to sell, are they going to be faced with eminent domain, or proposed not faced with eminent domain, only to face eminent domain in the future? And we will be watching. And that is my comment on the government campus.
Thank you for your comments. Do you have any other commenters, Brandy?
No other members of the public have raised their hand at this time.
Thank you. And is there anything, council members, for the good of the order? Councilmember Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to share with the council that we're going to be hosting the Federal Transit Administration's administrator on Thursday. The mayor has agreed, since the mayor is the chair of the transit board, that he and I will be meeting with her and her staff Thursday morning. So just wanted to share that. And along with the administrator will also be the Secretary of Transportation will be joining us on that day.
Thank you for that, John. See you on Thursday.
Yeah.
Councilmember Rosa Pepe and then Councilmember Lucarelli.
I heard a new term this week, one that I prefer not to hear, and it was called, instead of pandemic, it was twindemic. And it was a reminder for everybody to get their flu shots. I went and got mine today, and just in case you're immune compromised or over a certain age, you'll be getting an extra dose also, I found out. So please encourage everybody to get their flu shots. With masking and everything else, the flu season was very small last year, and it'd be great if we could keep it that way. Thank you.
Councilmember Lucarelli.
Yes, just to clarify, when I said that my report had been given, that was at another meeting, because that meeting was closest to our meeting. So for Ms. Fenton, if she goes to the September 14th recording, then that's where the report is.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other goods of the order? We've had a few. All right. With that, our meeting is adjourned, and we'll